gaat ons?
Good morning.
Dag gaat ons.
All the info streamers, InfoStream Namibia, hello Namibia, and the rest of the world. Nice to have you with us.
Ja, en dis donderdag die 9de. Ek dink ons moet daai rympie met ons nou so hou.
Yeah, I think everybody knows the date, but just to remind you, it's the 9th of March.
Ja, dan lees ek dit net vir myself. En party dan weet ek regtig nie wat 'n dag
is. Is dit nie weird as jy na die koerant kyk? Is die eerste ding wat jy by die koerant check is die datum.
Ja.
Isn't that weird?
Nee, dit is maar jy's waar want ek dink wat ons vir die koerant moet sê, miskien vir Tanya moet sê maandag, is dit die hoofopskrif, die vlag. Hierdie
Right.
Kyk, as jy nou hierdie vlag vat.
Yes.
Jy's heeltemal reg. Ek het dit misgekyk, nog glad nie gelees nie, maar die eerste ding wat ek gelees het was die datum. So ek dink hulle moet daai advertensie net onder.
Donnerstag, der 9. März 2023.
Ja, daar's hy. Goed, dis nou net interessant wat jy nou gesê het. Ek het dit nou nie eers besef nie.
Die Suid-Afrikaanse ekonomie het gekrimp met 1.3% in die 4de kwartaal van laas jaar.
Van verlede jaar.
So we're going to be talking business today, economics.
Ja. Regstellende aksies onder andere. Ons het vir Eben de Klerk by ons vandag ons lekker gesels
so nice. Ja.
En julle kan gerus saam gesels.
I love it when Eben is on the show.
Ja.
He always brings the right angle to everything.
Ja, ruffle the feathers a little bit hier en daar. Ons kan dit weer vandag doen. Ek wonder of die mense agtergekom het ons is bietjie vroeër as die afgelope ander dae.
Yeah, we're trying to be on time.
Ja. Ons dit gaan goed. Ek dink môreoggend met Food Friday gaan ons definitief op tyd wees.
Yeah, tomorrow's going to be a fantastic food and beverage. Friday we're going to be at Farm and Ocean.
Ja.
Was ek toe?
Farm and Ocean.
Kon ek dit gesê?
Ja, nee, heeltemal reg. Ons moet eintlik. Ek het vinnig gevra om vir ons 'n promotjie ook stuur, maar ek het dan nog nie gekry.
Liesel and Friends.
Ja. Farm and Ocean, dis in Nikkelstraat. Ek het nou nie die nommer nie. Jy weet wat die nommer is nie, maar ons sal dit vir julle kry in die loop van die dag, ons sal vir julle sê Nikkelstraat môreoggend. Blykbaar het hulle as jy instap by die plek by Farm and Ocean, het hulle die wonderlikste koffie beskikbaar en broodjies. In 'n baie mooi trok.
Right.
Maar dit nou gesê het Liesel gistermiddag vir my gesê en ek sal sorg dat daar ook 'n bier is.
Ah, fantastic.
So sê dit ook gesê.
All the more reason to go.
Ja. Nou, goed, so daai het ons dit en ons gaan nou even aan julle bekendstel. Kaufeee, wat is jou voorblad nuus vanoggend op die koerant?
Looking at the newspapers, just to let everybody know, is that no, there were no lions at Windpomp 14. Daar was die leeu's by myl 14, Windpomp 14 nie.
Ja.
Wat gebeur het, according to the newspaper, and there we have it on the German Daily, die Allgemeine Zeitung, hulle het spore gekry van 'n hyena.
Ja, in die omgewing van Windpomp 14.
En van daar af het toe almal gesê, oeg, yes, we've got lions. Well, it's not that far off, because we've had lions at the ocean before.
Ja.
We've had elephants that walked into Swakopmund.
Ja.
Ons het kudu's gehad en gemsbokke wat tot nou al in die branders gespeel het.
Ja.
So, hoekom sou mense nou nie dink dat leeu's ook by myl 14 van slag kan vakansie hou nie?
Ja. Nee, ek hoor dit. Maar daar is dan 'n redelike verskil tussen 'n hyena spoor en 'n leeu spoor.
Right.
Dit hang seker af hoeveel koffie jy in het daai oggend.
Ja.
Jy weet wat jy
Polisie koffie.
Ja. So maar in elk geval dis nog steeds 'n interessante storie.
Baie.
Maar die ouens van die bewaringsgroep het vinnig gereageer. Toe daai eerste boodskap op die conservation WhatsApp groep uitgaan.
Yes.
Dit was seker ek wonder of dit sekondes was toe begin die ouens reageer. En die eerste ouens was gewees die mense wat soort van bedrywig is met die bewaring en hulle trek daai leeu's want die meeste van het wat noem hulle wat se collar in Afrikaans ewen wat noem jy dit 'n kraag wat ook al halsband ja so iets wat anders maar ja dit is 'n interessante storie geweest ek gaan lees dit 'n bietjie vandag.
So what we have done is we sent you the link in terms of the maps where Farm and Ocean is. All you need to do tomorrow morning, just click on this link. We'll post it again tomorrow and just follow the instructions on your GPS or your phone and you'll find us at Farm and Ocean tomorrow.
Food Friday gaan regtig lekker wees.
Ja. Iets wat nogal heel interessant is op die voorblad ook van die Allgemeine Zeitung. Almal praat oor gas en olie. Ons praat nou al 25 jaar lank oor gas en olie. When is Namibia going to get the money? Show me the money. I mean, Dis ons nie veronderstel om al soos Dubai te lyk daar by langs.
Gaan dit oor beleggings voordat hulle dit verder kan
Yeah,
ontwikkel?
I don't know. I think everybody's involved. It's huge politics. The Americans are in it. The Chinese are in it. The Russians want to take uranium out of Stampriet.
Canadians are in it. Ons het gister op daai gehoor van nog ontdekkings is gedoen na die Namibiese kus, maar ek sê vir een ding sê, is ons kuslyn lank genoeg vir al hierdie oliebore.
So jy geld belê in waterstof, wat noem jy dit? Green hydrogen, water, wasserstof.
Daar's vir my 'n ja en nee antwoord. As jy vir my vra, gaan ek geld belê?
Ja.
Ek gaan nie geld belê nie.
Okay.
Ek in my leeftyd, ek het gister so gelag toe ons nou Motoring Wednesday gehad het.
Yes.
En ons praat oor die e-voertuie, die battery aangedrewe voertuie. Toe 'n geharde motorman gelag en gesê, ek gaan nie daai goed koop nie. Ek gaan dit ook nie aankoop vir my winkel.
It's going to get interesting, the whole thing. I mean, aren't we just, BSing ourselves?
Ja.
Daar's sommiges wat ons het mos vir wat sy naam nou die dag op die program gehad.
Oor die 90 karre wat al reeds in Namibia loop.
Ja, die e-cars.
Die Leaf.
And I must say, I actually like e-cars. But I know what it does to our environment, global environment, just to build one of those. Ja. Maar dit is so lekker om in 'n kar te klim en jy hoor nie 'n engine nie.
Nee, dit is so. Ek kan nie dit wegpraat nie. Maar die feit bly staan en ons het nou gister weer die gesprek gehad in Motoring Wednesday, net gepraat tussen brandstof, petrol en dieselkarre.
Ja.
En meneer Zimmerman het gesê, ons koop die dieselkarre.
The combustion engine is here to stay.
Here to stay. Ek dink julle kan sê wat julle wil.
Shall we not try these things on aeroplanes first and see if they don't fall out of the sky?
Ek dink die battery aangedrewe voertuig het een voordeel. Jy kan nou siekies in die aand by die huis insluit. Jy weet, maar daai Land Cruiser met sulke dik exhauste.
Ja, ek het
as jy nou laat gekeer het, kan jy nie so siekies by die huis aankom nie. Nee.
Ja, ek weet. Hier's 'n tip vir julle almal. As julle laat by die huis kom, doen soos ek, stap deur die garage en vat een van hierdie campingstoele.
Ja.
Dan vat jy hom saam, dan gaan jy na jou slaapkamer toe, dan sit jy voor jou vrou.
Ja.
Dan sê jy mos nou in die bed, dan sit jy voor. En as sy jou vra, wat maak jy nou? Dan sê jy nee, ek wil net in die teater in die eerste ry sit voor die drama begin. Daar het julle dit goed kry, julle kampstoele reg.
Naweek is op hande. Ek het twee interessante stories. Een van Henriette Lambrecht en die ander van Alvera Hatting.
Okay.
En ek dink die een waaroor ons nou gepraat het wat uiteindelik vir sekere antwoorde gee, is die geheim van die Dragon's Breath.
Oh right.
Ondergrondste, jawel, alle goed, jy kry grotte boogronds en ondergronds. Maar hierdie ene wat daar in die Tsumeb distrik is van Namibia. 'n Fascinerende storie en na mate hulle al verder hulle eksplodeer hierdie grond. En soos wat hulle aangaan, het hulle nou op hierdie stadium met reg gekry om so 'n 3D kaart te print. En dit wys die watervlakke, dit wys die diepste punt wat hulle sover bereik het. 264 meter. Dis baie interessant. Baie moeilik om die plek te bereik, maar ek dink ons gaan met iemand gesels. Ons sien nou maandag vir Tanya Belse hierso.
Yes,
miskien vra of sy vir Elvera Hatting kan kry om ook bietjie met ons te kom gesels. Maar as jy nou regtig waar nuuskierig is, gaan na Two Oceans. Dis twooceans.com. En gaan lees bietjie wat het hulle nou al daar uitgevind by die Dragon's Breath Cave.
Yes.
In Namibia now.
So what I've done is I've copied you into the respective link of the Dragon's Breath. You can just go and follow this link. And you'll actually see it's fascinating. 264 meter deep. And why is it called Dragon's Breath? Explain that.
Is interessant. Wat gebeur is as jy nou en ek gebruik altyd vir Kaufeee se voorbeeld. Hy blaas so oor die onderberg botteltjie. Nou as jy so oor 'n botteltjie blaas, dan maak dit 'n klank. Jy weet dat baie mense kan verskillende klanke maak.
Yes.
So wat hulle sê is dat die lug as 'n sterk wind verbywaai. Nou daardie boonste gedeelte wat by die oppervlak, daai kon sê die ingang.
Right.
Is nie baie groot nie. Plek waar hulle ingegaan het, was daardie gange maar net 50 cm wyd gewees.
Right.
So dis baie klein die oppervlak, die ingang na hierdie lijk toe. hierdie meer, ondergrondse meer. So wat gebeur is die wind waai oor dit.
Okay.
En soos wat die wind oor dit waai, haal die grot eintlik asem.
So there's basically a kind of whistling sound.
Ja, so die lugdruk verander uit die aard van die saak.
Right.
En dan verander dit weer soos wat hy oorbeweeg. So dis die asemhaling waarvan hulle praat. En dan ook natuurlik die vog wat vrygelaat word omdat dit so klein is. So dis ook in die artikel gaan lees bietjie hoekom dit genoem word die Dragon's Breath. Maar ja, dis een van 124 grotstelsels. Ondergrondse grotstelsels in Namibië.
Okay.
Dis maar een van hulle. En hulle beweer dat die meeste van hierdie ondergrondse, hierdie grotstelsels, die meeste van hulle is in die noorde van die land. Dis ook baie interessant. Ek het nie baie meer inligting oor die ander nie, maar dis wat ek het. Kaufeee, die enigste ander interessante ding in die Afrikaanse koerant was maar net die mooi storie oor die olifante.
Yes.
Dit sê as die olifante vir jou fluister. En dis ouetjie meneer van Marcel Meyer. Hy's 'n toergids en hy was daar in die Oegap gewees. En hy het baie ver in die Oegap afgery tot waar jy die terrasse begin kry.
Ja.
En toe het hy op 'n klomp olifante afgekom. En hy sê hy was nog nooit in sy lewe so bang nie, want het die olifantkoei onder andere met kleintjies het so ewe skielik toe hulle stop en hy kan nie teruggaan nie. Ek het ook al in daai gebied gery. Jy's mos nou in 'n sandspoortjie. Jy kan mos nou nie vinnig omdraai nie. Toe hy net gaan doodstop met sy voertuig en toe die olifantkoei uitgekom en die babas.
Ja.
En nou sê hulle hierso wanneer die olifante vir jou fluister en die mamma en die babas het na die kar toe gekom en tot teen aan die kar gekom by die ruitte.
Baie rustig.
Rustig en absoluut geen aggressie gewys nie. Hy sê dit was iets wat hy nog nooit in sy lewe beleef het nie. Hy was natuurlik in spanning geweest en baie bang geweest. Ja. Ek kan dit glo. Maar dis ook is net 'n mooi storie. Jy sien daai ontmoeting het so wat 20 minute het dit geduur. So net 'n lekker storie om te lees op 'n donderdagoggend.
Right. So, who do we have with us this morning? We've got Joep Nel. Goeiemôre Joep. Dis lekker om julle te sien. Ons het vir Zelly Kotse. Ons het vir Piet Spies uit Bloemfontein uit. Hallo Piet, ek hoop dit is nou al 'n bietjie sien ons maar droër daar by julle. En julle het dan nou genoeg reën gehad. Julle kan maar 'n bietjie hier vir ons ook stuur.
Ja, verseker.
Dan het ons vir karretjies en dan natuurlik vir Klein Andrei Karstens. Môre julle net vir Klein Andrei sê sorry, ek het nou gister dit 'n bietjie versuim om daai resultate van jou af deur te gee in terme van die Formule 1 en so, maar ons sal 'n bietjie later sal ons wel daaroor praat.
Ja.
That's it.
Kaufeee het reg jy het nogal gesê want ons het so 'n interessante gesprek gehad by Zimmerman Motors. Maar dit sal lekker wees. Ja, ek moet eerlikwaar sê ek het glad nie ek volg nie daai Formule 1 en die motorfiets se resultate nie, maar dit sal lekker wees om die inligting te kry. Baie kry. Kom ons vat gou 'n vinnige breek en dan sê ons welkom vir Eben wat vandag by ons kuier. So ons is nou weer terug by julle.
Let's keep it positive.
Ek wil julle manne net gou herinner daaraan dat Andries Botha optree by Presley's eerskomende naweek.
Hierdie naweek is Andries Botha
van
by Presley's.
Hoe lank al uitkom ek nog hier uit.
Is by Presley's soos praat daaroor. Want nou van julle
Ja, ek het ook gevoel ek wil bietjie moeg raak.
Are we getting too old for this?
Niks, ons gaan nou net daaroor gesels. En dan ander advertensie is natuurlik Andrei van F1 Auto Traders bel hom. Andrei het vir ons gesê hy maak kan ook by tyd maak hy 'n kontant aanbod. Dan sê hy hierso is jou kontant vir jou motorvoertuig van skakel hom daar. by 0813877029. Goed, ons is terug met jong Eben de Klerk by ons.
Young. We spoke about age earlier on when Eben came here, just before the show started. So we're not getting old. But this is a klug
Nee.
daai.
Dit 'n nommer.
Ja,
Verwysingsnommers raak net verder agteruit. Maar baie welkom Eben.
Dankie.
En baie dankie. Dit was so lekker toe jy die boodskapie sê, kom ons maak 'n plan. Toe weet ek nie wat dis hoe dit werk.
I love it when Eben is here because then we can talk about the economy with somebody that actually understands what's going on because, en ek herhaal, dit is in die koerante hierso, ek wil net dalk die inleiding hierso gee. It's saying South African economy shrinks 1.3% in Q4, en dan staan daar heel bo, strong growth expected for Namibia. All indications are that the Namibian economy in 2022 recorded its best growth rate since 2015. Eben, sorry, as ek hierdie goed lees, dit kom net nie by my beursie bymekaar nie. Verstaan jy? All these economists say that the economy is doing so well and what, but I just don't feel it in my wallet.
Goed gestel, ek maak my beursie oop.
Ja, ek voel dit ook.
Jy ook?
Nee, ek wil nou net as ekspert sê, ek voel dit ook nie.
Jy weet wat 'n eie beursie? 'n Eie beursie. Dis as jy jou beursie oopmaak en jy begin huil. Dit is 'n eie, dis soos eie sny jy begin huil.
Ja. Wat sê van die opskrif? Daai opskrif.
Maar almal maak mos maar voorspellings, ons hoor mos ook maar gereeld van hoeveel reën ons kry ons dit nou nie.
Ja.
Ek dink ons is in 'n baie beter posisie Suid-Afrika in geweldig baie opsigte. Onder andere het ons nog krag wat hulle nie het nie. Ek dink dit maak hulle ekonomie baie seer. So, daar's 'n paar wesenlike verskille tussen ons en Suid-Afrika, maar daar's ongelukkig ook 'n paar similarities. Ons het in ons beleidsomgewing dieselfde pad gestap as wat Suid-Afrika gestap het die laaste 30 jaar.
Ja.
En dit het beide van ons lande baie seer gemaak, want daar was 'n geweldige misbruik gewees van die geleenthede wat vir almal as verkoop was as vir almal, maar 'n paar het redelik diep in die sakke vir die staatskoffers geskep.
Ja.
En dit het seer gemaak en dit het gevolge gehad. Jy weet, jou dienslewering het begin agteruit gaan, jou hospitaal het begin agteruit gaan, jou skool het begin agteruit gaan. So ons het definitief as die woord wat ons baie geniet om te gebruik, suboptimaal gevolge gehad as gevolg daarvan. En ek dink dit is nou tyd ook na 30 jaar wat ons nou moet begin stokkyk van wat was ons probleme daai tyd en hoe het ons dit aangespreek en waar is ons nou en wat is ons probleme nou, want jy weet ons politikuste vertel die hele tyd vir ons dat ons probleme nou is nog steeds die probleme van daai tyd en daarom het julle ons nodig om daai probleme te reg te maak en die data wys net dat dit nie die geval is nie. So ons kan baie goed doen, ons kan merkwaardig doen. Ek sê nog steeds daar's min plek in die wêreld waar ek nou sal wil wees in terme van potensiaal vir 'n land wat kan groei. Vir wat ons kan bereik, vir so 'n klein landjie met dit wat nou op ons deure lê wat ons van kan voordeel trek. Maar dan moet ons dit reg bestuur. Dan moet ons beleidsraamwerk reg kry. Dan moet ons besef wat se ekonomiese ideologieë werk en watter werk nie.
Kaufeee, jy nog daar
Ja, ek probeer dit, I'm trying to just get it right in my mind. It's like, isn't it just a matter of when the one crisis ends, the next one starts en ons verstaan almal makrofaktore en goed wat ons nie kan verander nie en so aan. Is die onderliggende ding nie heeltemal net die oorlog in die Oekraïne saam met Rusland?
Alles speel 'n rol. Die ekonomie is maar 'n komplekse omgewing. So alles speel 'n rol.
Okay.
Die inflasie was verseker gedryf. En dis wêreldwyd gedryf deur daai oorlog, want daar het supply chain probleme gekom, daar het voedsel probleme gekom. So dit sou altyd 'n inflasionêre effek gehad het op die ekonomie en ons sal natuurlik nie vrygestel word van dit nie.
Sure.
Maar ons moet nou 'n bietjie verder terug gaan en ons moet verstaan, jy weet, ons ekonomie het begin duik. Hy het in die afdraandpad gegaan, maar hy het regtig begin duik na 2016. En die navorsing wat EPRA gedoen het, Economic Policy Research Association, het in 2016 al het die ekonome gesê ons gaan die land bitter seer maak met hierdie tipe beleidsraamwerke. En dit het gebeur. Die regering het natuurlik gesê dis die droogte. En toe die droogte nou verby is, toe is dit nou COVID. En toe COVID nou verby is, nou sê die Ukraine war. Die enigste manier waarop jy rasioneel kan kyk of dit waar is of nie, is om te gaan kyk wat het ons gedoen in vergelyking met ander lande in ons posisies, byvoorbeeld Botswana, in ons verslag op hierdie aangeleentheid op affirmative action spreek dit ook.
Right.
Ons het substansieel swakker gedoen. So daar is iets wat ons doen wat ons in 'n slegter posisie sit vir baie jare al as ander lande wat in ons presies dieselfde situasie is. Want hulle het ook droogte gehad, hulle het ook COVID gehad, hulle sit met al die probleme wat ons sit, maar ons doen slegter as hulle. So duidelik is ons besig om in 'n pad af te loop wat hulle nie loop nie, nog nie loop nie, hopelik nooit loop nie. Wat ons in 'n slegte posisie sit. En as ons dit nie aanvaar en aanspreek nie, dan gaan ons daai pad bly loop.
Effectively, what you are saying, Eben, is that Namibia is not being governed properly.
We don't have the proper policy in place.
Right. We don't have the proper policies. So let's say we talk about the private sector. I'm a private businessman. I do pretty well. And I employ, make it 50, 100 odd people. I'm working very hard at, paying my taxes and paying all that. And then all of a sudden we come up with this new regulation and laws or what that if I employ more than 10 people, I can't just go and employ who I want. I must first go to some form of governmental organization who will then dictate to me who I have to employ and. Ons kom ons nou al die jare sê nou maar post-independence with affirmative action, employment equity, government will get more involved in business, whereby business should be more involved in government, all that kind of stuff. And what you're actually telling me is that these rules and regulations are just to the detriment of our country.
They definitely are. We give a breakdown of Namibia's history for the past 20 years in terms of where we positioned ourselves on the competitiveness rankings. And there's a few things that we cannot argue away. If your country is not competitive, your economy cannot grow optimally.
Right.
If you don't get investments, if you don't get growth in business, you cannot create jobs to supply the massive demand and ever-growing demand for jobs. So in 2005, just before the competitive ranking started, the World Bank issued a report and stated, then there weren't rankings, they only started in 2006, and highlighted that Namibia was amongst the top 25 countries in the world that, in terms of ease of employing people, and in the top 10 in terms of regulation, that we didn't regulate our private sector to death, which means that there was an incentivized environment for business to grow. And our economy showed it. We did very well. And then they started the rankings in 2006, and we ranked very good, and we just dropped. And we dropped substantially until the last rankings came out. So we went into the wrong direction. The regulations that you refer to are two regulations, just to give some background for those who don't know yet. And they pertain to the Affirmative Employment Action Act and the Employment Services Act. And those two laws must be complied with previously by businesses employing 25 or more employees.
Okay.
They brought that now down to 10. Okay, so the regulation is just a one-liner that says that reportable entities are now 10 or more employees.
Yes.
What does it mean? It means that those businesses that now come into the loop must comply with a host of prescriptions, compliance requirements, and the associated costs with complying on both the Affirmative Action Law and the Employment Services Act. So immediately you make it more difficult, and we ran a survey amongst 500 businesses, and they, with the exception of literally less than a handful, said that this definitely adds to compliance costs, and that they are definitely going to reconsider opening new businesses or expanding their businesses. That should be the biggest red flag for government that you can get, because we sit with way above 30% unemployment rates in our country. The youth, they estimate now could be very close to 60% unemployment. So what you want to do now is create jobs. Instead, the Employment Equity Commissioner and the Minister of Labour says we will bring more businesses into the loop of regulation. We will make it even more difficult for them to comply, because this is the right thing to do in terms of Namibia's history and the equal playing ground. So we went and analyzed that statement. And we looked at the 2018 Employment Equity Commissioner's report, almost 200 pages, and we started analyzing the data to see whether the statement is just rational, factually correct, and we found it to be not correct. And if I may quickly just give the data.
Ek wil baie graag hier met daai data gee, want I think it's actually not interesting, it's shockingly interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
so in that report, there were 923 entities that reported. In other words, 923 entities employed more than 25 or more people. That's 2018, before the regulation came.
Okay.
They reported on 277,745 employees that they cumulatively employed.
Okay.
So on average, it's about 300 employees per entity, per reportable employer.
Right.
Of those 300 persons employed, on average, 6 were white males. You must understand that this affirmative action law only targets white males.
Yeah.
Only 6 out of the 300 were white males. They have they have categories of levels of employees. So at the top is your executive director, then you have senior management, middle management, and so forth. So on all the categories except for the top 2, it's massively predominantly the persons which the affirmative action law wanted to benefit. In the top 2 categories, the Employment Equity Commissioner says we have a problem. Executive directors only occupy 0.6 white males per those 300 employees. So there's less than 1 on average white male in every reportable entity. There is 1.06 white males in senior management in each one of those entities on average. So what in fact, in total, we are only talking about 1,571 white males. 1,571 white males.
In what? In the total of how many?
In the total of 277,745 employees. So the whole state machinery in terms of affirmative action and imposing more and more regulation on all businesses, not just white-owned businesses, all businesses must comply, is aimed at diluting somehow a total white male workforce at senior level of 1,570.
Incredible.
That's the purpose. The Employment Equity Commissioner replied to our report and said, but we cannot stop this because these laws are part of what you call it, of our social cohesion.
Social cohesion. That's a new concept.
So social cohesion in Namibia depends on the fact that we have to target 1,571 males in senior management positions, otherwise things will fall apart somehow. And we actually warned in our report, we looked at the Malaysian example because people bring it up, the politicians like to bring it up to say, but it is an example of word work. They had 50 years of these type of laws. And economists, you can just imagine, economists and social discipline scholars and so forth did numerous research on this. And we found one that we just copied verbatim into the report to understand what did they achieve. They achieved a majority of the population who is now in the class of entitlement. That part of the population they found to be less inclined to study, to further themselves, to add to the economy, because the minority now has to harder and harder to provide to them. So you create a rent-seeking economy. And we see that in the papers every day. We have created a rent-seeking economy on the back of firstly localization, but then it became BEE, the NEEP that's still out there somewhere where we don't know where it is, affirmative action and so forth. So ultimately we prejudice hundreds of thousands of black Namibians who are desperately seeking jobs, and tell them effectively, we're not going to allow an environment where you can get a job. Because we have to still target 1,571
white males.
Yeah. And then government, sorry, just the last part. Then government goes further and says, but by the way, also, if you want to employ somebody, We have a portal that is now legislated.
Yes.
There's an internet portal that if you have a new position or a vacancy, you have to, as an employer, register there, and job seekers doesn't have to register there, but then you have to give them preference treatment. So any job seeker out there who does not want to, for whatever reason, register on that portal must be prejudiced.
Ja, maar ekskuus meneer Kaufeee. Die vraag wat ek net wou gehad het, net op daai punt. Jy het deels daarvan geantwoord, is die hele kwessie nou van die nuwe wetgewing en I want you just to explain in this particular report, equality versus efficiency. That part of your studies.
I'd like to add on to that, if I may, Dirk, because of what I just see. The moment you say the word parastatal in Namibia, you just see disaster. Whether it's an air company, whether it's a railroad company, you know, I can't even begin to tell you how we are failing at certain institutional levels.
Yeah, and the evidence is there. It's not just a perceived problem, it's a real problem. We have seen, and we call it pushing the competence to the margins. So in the process of appointing persons who are not necessarily capable to do the job, but we are satisfied that we need to do this because we have to rectify the past.
Yeah. Sure.
You have at the institutional level more and more failure. And again, you can argue, but we could have appointed one better qualified, more experienced person or not. Ultimately, the result is that if there's failure, it's not just that white male that you just pushed out of the system or denied a job. It's it's millions of Namibians that suffer the consequences.
Yeah, and you say no to knowledge.
Yeah,
you know?
But the word social cohesion. Okay, I'd like to go back 30 years, if I may, 33 in fact. Namibia became independent. We had a resolution which was presented at the United Nations, upon which Namibia gained its independence. 10, 12, 15 years later, we saw a beautiful independent Namibia with a lot of international investment coming into the country. Let's call them the golden years, 10 to 15 years perhaps. And now we are here 33 years later. Is this industrial cohesion that you talked about, social cohesion, isn't it just pushing it all the way into socialism? Because to remain a democratic country is just so expensive, and I guess you need an intelligent nation to be democratic.
Efficient nation.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've had a one-party state all our independent history.
Right.
So Namibians are not. They're not used to a proper democracy. The world sees us as a very difficult, very close to failed democracy type of. Let's just call it a difficult democracy. We're not a mature democracy.
Yes, sure.
So at the time when we became independent, I get asked the question on this report by other media houses a lot. Should we have done something different? And I say no. The affirmative action law was necessary at the time.
Okay.
Because there was a massive skewness in all structures of our society.
Right.
And somebody said, but it was promised that it will end by 2020, but I can't find that on the internet sadly. But yeah, it served a purpose. What is necessary now is to take stock of our current situation. Our current situation is that our unemployment has risen substantially. Our investments are plummeting. Our businesses are not growing. Nipped up just the other day, and the paper said no, the locals don't want to invest in our economy. The locals cannot afford to invest in our economy because you put so much regulation on them. That causes unemployment. That causes 99.9% of the job seekers out there are black people that you are prejudicing by the current situation. And we refuse to take stock of the current situation.
Yes.
These type of regulations, we could not be provided with any research, any data on which NIEF became NIEP was founded. We were not provided with any research on which the impending investment bill, which was tabled and withdrawn 2 days later, was premised. I can't see any research that actually justifies the latest regulations to reduce the employment threshold to 10. So we're making policy in a vacuum and we sell it to the Namibians, the Namibian voters, as good for them, but it's not good for them. And if you know, intelligent people are necessary to have a democracy. If the Namibian population don't understand that these policies may sound good, government may look like it's the provider of jobs because it can't be the provider of jobs anymore. Now it sets up a portal to say, but you have to come to us to get a job. Those things hamper business, and it hampers employment, and it affects every single Namibian for the worse.
Ek het so nog 'n paar vrae, maar Kaufeee, ek is geïnteresseerd om te kyk wie gesels saam.
Hier kom baie kommentare hierso deur, and thank you everybody on InfoStream Namibia for joining with us. Joep Nel sê begin met stocktake van wat is oor, dan seker kyk hoe red ons dit. Isn't that basically what Eben is saying? We should be looking at our current situation now. It's as if the country is being governed on things that happened 7, 8, 9 years ago. It's as if Namibia is not being run at its current situation.
It's been run on ideologies of 60 years ago.
Yes.
That's your biggest problem. And if we don't get visionary leaders, and especially with the major potential, I'm not sold on the green hydrogen thing as well, I wouldn't invest.
Okay.
But the oil definitely, even on a worst case scenario, will be a major benefit to our country in the next, not tomorrow, but 5 to 10 years. And I see the What's in it for me brigades already jumping out of all the closets.
I get it. Yes.
You know, and that's
belay.
Yeah, that's the rent-seeking economy, because for 30 years, we now say to people, look, government knows why you are suffering. We're going to be your saviors, and we're going to give everybody a prosperous life. So they did that through massive employment in the public sector, which inevitably would have come to an end because you can't afford it, and we had to borrow more and more to prop up this government is providing narrative. So government can't do that now anymore. But it still wants to sell the narrative and still lives it's an ideology of many, many decades ago, because that is what brought the current SWAPO party in power.
Right.
And if we don't get visionary leaders within the SWAPO party or elsewhere, like we always say at EPRA, we don't care who runs the country.
Sure.
We don't care what the color of their skins are or gender and so forth. Just bring in the right policies so that we can grow private sector, because private sector is the only hope for our country to create jobs and to grow the economy. And if that doesn't happen, even if SWAPO would be replaced today and the next party takes over and does the same thing, we're just going to be worse off, not better off. So it's not about regime change, it's about visionary leaders, which unfortunately, and I'm not putting only the ruling party on the spot, I'm putting pretty much every single current Namibian political party on the spot. They have an extreme lack of vision on what it will take to grow private sector, to grow investment, and to benefit optimally from our oil discoveries and to benefit on the
yes. Zilly Kotse sê salarisse kom nie by die styg van inflasie en kostes nie. Min mense het geld deesdae vir luxuries, meeste probeer net survive. Zilly, ek dink jy is heeltemal reg. Sy sê die nuwe employment policy is belaglik. Joep sê solank, ek moet net hierso uitkom, solank die ekonomie in rasisme omgedraai word, gaan ons nêrens behalwe af. Dit is sy stelling. Zilly sê dit is ons nou duidelik diskriminasie. Horst sê very interesting figures. Dit is daai wat jy nou net gebring het. En Tia Skutte sê dit maak my so bebloed. Yeah, okay, so let's say we are in this situation. Shall we talk about the future? Or does that scare you?
No.
Kaufeee, kan ons een stap terug gaan.
Okay.
Ek wil net vra ek wys hulle noem beleggers. Ek praat van die familiebeleggers in Namibia. Die ouens wat al die jare gesorg het dat daar standvaste besighede is.
Right.
Met ander woorde, die pioniers, die ouens wat die inisiatiewe het. En sê kom ons doen iets, kom ons belê. En ons het vroeër gepraat informeel hier gepraat van familiebesighede waar daar 'n pa in die hoof was of 'n oupa wat nog leef, miskien nog in die besigheid staan. Dan kry jy 'n pa en dan die pa het sy seuns voorberei. Almal is blank. Met hierdie nuwe beleid sit jy nou met 'n pa en 3 seuns op senior gesag Aan die een kant het jy hierdie gesonde inisiatief van kom ons bou iets vir die toekoms en dis deel van die Namibiese ekonomie, maar aan die ander kant word jy absoluut hier gekniehalter deur beleid. Hoe gemaak nou vorentoe?
Ek gaan nou nie die statistiek herhaal nie, maar presies die punt waarop jy aan. So 0,6 was 0,6 blanke mans gemiddeld in al die groter besighede in Namibië. So daar's bitter min besighede wat die pa en 3 wit mans die besighede bestuur. Maar daar is van. So wat nou gebeur is, omdat op gemiddeld lyk die statistiek eintlik asof as al ver by die wat veronderstel was om die targets te wees, en herinner my dat ek nog goed terugkom na demographic representation toe. Maar die targets moet wees. Gaan die Equity Commissioner nou gaan, en dit is net 'n natuurlike uitvloei, want hulle moet nou aanhou bestaan, hulle moet aanhou met die ideologie, gaan hulle sê, maar wag, daar is ABC stationers. Ons sien dat hulle hele raad bestaan uit blanke mans. Dis nie aanvaarbaar nie. So nou gaan dit nie net meer gaan oor gemiddeld nie, oor wat ons in die land bereik het nie. Ons gaan nou vir individuele besighede kan. Ons gaan hulle nou target, want hulle is nou die ouens wat die probleem is. Die feit dat daar vir elke potensiële wit besigheid dalk 1000 besighede is waar daar nie een wit man binne is nie, is nie nou meer relevant nie. Ons moet nou vir jou
and that's exactly the thing. I mean, when I look at, let's say, board photos of our board and our senior executive and what, whether it's banks, insurance companies, I just see black people. And Namibia exists more than just black people. There's no, come on. So the white male is being racially discriminated against.
There's no denial that it's racial discrimination from the politicians. It's just justified racial. It's called positive racial.
Oh, right, positive.
So,
can't they just call it apartheid?
Well, apartheid wasn't justified. This is justified. So you can never win that argument.
You're kidding me.
No. Well, that's the argument. So it's a futile argument. So it's better to stick to the facts.
Right. Okay. Let's stick to the facts.
A very interesting point now, because the discussion up to now is black and white males. Blacks, women, and white males, because that's differentiation. But without that being written in the law, the Labour Equity Commissioner says that there must be demographic representation.
Okay.
That's the target. Okay.
Right.
So if white males, he says it's 4% of the country, which it's not. But according to the reports, 4%, they should not occupy more than 4% of the senior management positions. They occupy far less than that, all the other positions, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter to them. So we're talking about those 1,571 white males again. But if demographic representation, which I must reiterate is not written in any law, it's the Equity Commissioner himself that set that target. We have to understand that if we bring white males down to 4% and we look for demographic representation, we must limit the Herero people, black or white, on all boards, public and private sector entities. Some people may not occupy more than 1%. If we would say the Oshivambo-speaking people is 55% of the population, there may not be more than 55% Oshivambo-speaking people on any company's board or in senior management.
Government and private?
SOEs and private.
Oh, okay.
So everybody's happy when the target is white males. But if you look for demographic representation, you have to limit all subpopulations within those demographics. So this law inherently discriminates against every single Namibian, because if you're a woman, there may not be more than 50% roughly on the board.
Okay.
Female.
Right.
So there's caps on every single person, no matter where you are in those designated groups, because otherwise you're never going to reach demographic representation. And it appears that they don't understand that it actually discriminates against every Namibian.
Incredible.
You guys write in the report, I'm just going to take two subject matters. You say policy is extremely important, and I would imagine towards efficiency. But then you also state that it remains fundamentally wrong.
The policy?
Yeah, the policy. The current policy.
Yeah, well, look, there's a lot of ideologies out there. You see them in the papers every day. And it's very sad that people don't want to just read. We have centuries of experiments with Marxism, communism.
Yep.
Hundreds of millions of people have starved to death because of those experiments. Yet today, we talked about the fall of communism, yet today we sit with a political ideology in our country, not only within the ruling party, but actually opposition parties, that feel very strong that Marxism and communism, they call it socialist, but they don't understand what socialists mean very often, because they compare it with the Scandinavian countries and Germany, which is a free market economy, all of those of note, and they're strong economies, but they are welfare states. So people misunderstand what socialism means. Welfare states are good, but you can only have strong welfare states if you have a strong private, free market, open economy, because that is how businesses flourish, make money, make profit, employ more people, pay more taxes, to have more to put into hospitals, schools, and so forth. That has been proven. For some reason, we are still stuck in Namibia on a few individuals pushing a Marxist ideology, and some of them are amongst the policymakers. And to have this, I don't want to call it socialist, to have this communist society, government must actually take control over private sector. And this is the policy that more and more comes to fore. If you look at NIF, if you look at the Investment Promotion Act, if you look at the horrible investment promotion, facilitation promotion bill, and we would love to see what comes out next, you can see government wants complete control over private sector. And that does not and has never incentivized business. It's never incentivized investment. It's never incentivized the creation of jobs. It will lead to disastrous consequences, and we have seen that happening since 2016, because investors are not stupid. They read what the government is in the direction they're going, and we've been severely punished for that.
Just a question even towards governments, more aimed at governments. We've seen it now in South Africa, that the president merely reshuffle his cabinet and his government, the people in charge, but they don't appoint new. Are we not facing the same dilemma in Namibia?
The name of the game is patronage. You know, there was a lot of corruption, and the corruption came on the back of BE, affirmative action, and that started a patronage network of persons. And I think there's a massive divide within the ANC. Like, I think there's quite a big divide in SWAPO as well, where the What's in It for Me brigade sit in one camp and actively work towards self-enrichment, and in that the patronage is quite important. And then there's a group that really wants to take the country forward for the greater good of the country and all the citizens. Unfortunately, it appears that this group is not winning ground in South Africa. And if you're going to allow them more and more positions, they're going to win ground, and they're going to push out the corrupt clique. And that is why you see a reshuffling, because there's behind the scenes a need to preserve that rent-seeking economy that they've created. And it's a massive economy, and I don't think that's very different in Namibia. There's a massive rent-seeking economy. You can go and rent that little hut down there and bring in two packaging machines and win a $650 million tender. That's rent-seeking at its best, and government just brings out more and more regulation to support that. The Minister of Finance brought now regulation on preferential treatment just last year. So it's going in overdrive. It's not stopping.
I would like to bring maybe just something that I saw the other day, Eben, and I'd just like to maybe bring this up. Let's look at an economy such as Singapore. Singapore became independent in 1965 and separated from Malaysia to become independent in its own sovereign state and all that kind of stuff. If we were to look at Singapore's success, is basically three things, what they're saying. It's, first of all, its strategic location. Then its friendly policies adopted by the government towards foreign investment. And then an efficient and honest government. A government that is run by people that basically goes and employs the right people for the right jobs, not a person that sits in government and then employs his brother, his child, his aunt, his uncle, and all that kind of stuff. Singapore's success is basically up to these three things. We have an exceptional good strategic position, location, if you look at Namibia. I mean, how many oil rigs are currently off our Namibian and western coast? Okay, that's one thing. Yeah. Secondly, the friendly policies. That's what you've discussed here with us today. I don't see that as friendly policies. I'm going to be quite honest. And then an efficient and honest government. I don't see an honest Namibian government. I just don't see it.
Yeah. So we didn't put everything that we researched in the report because we had to cut off at about 60 pages. We actually wanted to make it 5 and then we ran up to 60. So we analyzed what happened in Singapore. And yes, two things, like you said, 100% correct. They clamped down on corruption hard.
Right.
Look, Namibia doesn't do that. There's absolutely zero will, political will, to clamp down on corruption in Namibia.
Correct.
And I am one of the biggest critics of the HCC, and I have said it to them in their faces. I think Anna is so fed up with me as well, but I have zero faith in that institution. We see what happens in our government every day. So if you can't get rid of corruption or clamp it down at least substantially, you're buggered anyway.
Sure.
These types of policies moves away from meritocracy. What happened in Singapore was based on meritocracy. Get the right people for the right job because service delivery ultimately benefits the whole country, not just the person you employ. But very interesting is when Malaysia started, their neighbor, started with their employment policies.
Okay.
The richest and the most competent and better educated persons actually moved out because they felt discriminated against.
Yes.
And they moved to Singapore. So Singapore economy actually benefited from the employment, the discrimination that happened at their neighbors.
Of Malaysia.
Yeah. So they said, we're going to go for meritocracy. And the Malaysian guy said, well, I would rather go to a place that values meritocracy. And if you look at the growth part, there was an Asian boom for quite a long, so all Asian countries came up.
Right.
So Malaysia also came up, but relative to Singapore, not even close. Malaysia stayed behind so far to Singapore because they said we will have a rent-seeking economy, and Singapore said, well, we'll benefit from the
Brilliant.
the guys that bring in the money and the skills.
Ons kry kommentaar hierso. Oh, this is so cool. Ek wil net 'n bietjie kom Piet sê hy het vir ons op ons foon 'n video gestuur. Ons sal dit 'n bietjie later check Piet. Hy basies sê wat mense tot die besef laat kom hoekom dit gaan soos dit gaan in ons regerings. Joop Nel sê the whole world is moving towards socialism where the younger generation believe in handouts instead of hard work. Human rights are the biggest evil when being abused as we see on a daily basis nowadays.
Can I just stop you there?
Right.
There's nothing wrong with human rights, okay? It's because it's when the left actually goes and becomes militant and becomes fascist. Then it's not human rights that's the problem. It's people that want to continuously put themselves in a victimhood situation to gain benefit and most of the time commercial benefit from it.
So
so I agree fully with him. It's being abused.
Okay.
So it's not the human rights issue that's a problem. It's the abuse.
Right. And then a plain P. Tia Skutte sê Eben for president.
Ja.
Huh?
Ja.
Ons het
Nee, dankie.
ek wil 'n opsomming maak of jy dit eintlik op die voorblad van julle drukstuk gedoen waar jy skryf jy sê stairway to equality and you describe it as a possible heaven or highway to rent seeking hell. My vraag aan jou is what can we do different moving forward knowing that the current policies are fundamentally wrong but we cannot just leave it there. What can we do different going forward?
Okay. That's the question. EPRA started in 2017, and that's a question that me and a lot of specialists try to eke out. So, in our previous reports on NIF and the investment bill, we have pages and pages of proposals that can be done different. They're very, very simple. You have to create more economic activity in our country. That you only do through incentivization. This is the opposite. You have to develop human capital. Human development is crucial for the problems that any country that is poor and unequal like ours. And there's 3 pillars basically. That's your education, your healthcare, and your safety and security, that includes the housing part. Okay,
Yep.
so we are overrun these days by criminals. Our housing situation is in complete shambles because we are not able to service enough land for the urbanization, which would have always happened because it happened globally. Our hospitals are in shambles, and our education system, we just saw last year, has got one of the highest per GDP investments and one of the lowest outcomes. So, so the pillars that needs to be there to get out of this mess is not attended to sufficiently.
And a record-breaking entry level or students that registered this year at UNAM.
That is the thing. Our universities and our science and technology areas, what they are spitting out every year, all these students, all these qualified people, but we just don't see a change in our country.
Where will they find work?
Also on our website, I'll give you our website manager for people who want to get this report. There's also, I did my MPhil in future studies, that's why I'm not scared of the future.
Okay.
On scenarios of where Namibia may end up in 2040. And part of what I analyzed there was the joblessness, the unemployment rate amongst Namibian graduates some time back. It was very close to zero about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So about 10 years ago, slightly more than 10 years ago, a graduate Namibian was almost guaranteed a job. The unemployment rate amongst our graduates has skyrocketed because of several factors, of course. We are putting out more graduates.
Right.
We will have to start looking at the quality of the qualifications that they get locally, because we know that our admission requirements is far lower than South Africa.
Okay.
But for our governments, it's a number game. The more we push out, the better we've done. But you haven't, because you haven't really equipped people to go into the job market. They for a large part only found jobs in the public sector, and the public sector is completely saturated. They cannot find jobs there anymore. So your unemployment rate under graduates have increased substantially, also because you have hampered economic growth in the private sector.
Yeah, but you just mentioned it, the admission criteria. They've stated it. It was in the newspapers. The colleges and universities said we will lower the criteria to allow more people to come and study.
So you're not creating. You're not focusing on quality. You're focusing on quantity, because everybody must get. Everybody, all Namibians must benefit from the oil. So the whole idea is that if all Namibians are graduates, our situation will change. It will not change because you're not focusing on the right pillars, on the right objectives.
Fascinating.
Kaufeee is the absolute fascinating.
I can sit and talk to Eben all day long.
Yeah, and this research you've done, except for the statistics in your graphs, it's very interesting. But for me, I'll need some time with you. You need to explain that. But I think a lot of you guys would love to read this. Kaufeee, can we put that website on for the guys who would like to go and look at this?
To get that,
you've
website
got it there. Yeah.
But we can just look
The
at
heavy
it.
rate is down for you.
Okay.
I don't think
I
it's
don't
actually
have
on the
it.
report as
We
well.
are economists, we don't even have it. Yes?
www.epro.cc.
Okay, cool.
Under the downloads tab,
Yeah.
you'll find all those.
There we go. So what I will do is I'll just copy this link over to you. Go and have a look at this website where you get all the information that Eben has just given us.
I have to end off.
No, you're welcome.
Not end off. You can.
No.
But just have to mention that EPRA is supported by a small group of businesses that provide financial assistance so that these types of documents can be delivered.
Right.
We don't have any intention that, or any hope, I would rather say, to persuade 99% of the policymakers today. They look at this, and I've received very rude letters from some politicians about the collective decision making within SWAPO and so forth. But it must be out there, because at one stage the inevitable will happen. You would walk down this road,
right?
And we hope to inform the body of literature for politicians who one day want to actually change it around. And we hope we don't reach the Zimbabwe or South African scenario before that happens.
Yes.
It's very likely that it's going to happen. So thank you very much for those small group of businesses that continue to support us. And without you, this research is just not possible.
You could mention them if you want to. if at all.
No. Our constitution doesn't allow that. Many of them have been victimized in the past for being critical of government policy.
Right.
And we've seen that, we've witnessed that. If you stand critical towards government, you do run a risk, especially if you have a business that do work with government and have a lot of employees. It is irresponsible.
Communism at its best.
Unfortunately, we have a very intolerant political environment in our country.
Eben, what can we do as a social media platform, InfoStream Namibia? What can we do more to help or help with information dissemination and bringing ideas, studies, and the word just to the average remember, our Facebook page we stream worldwide. But a lot of Namibians, South Africans are following it. What can we do more as InfoStream Namibia?
Yes, I would. I can't even start to say where you can do more. You can. What you're doing here, and I have to thank all the other media houses as well for the opportunity the past 2 weeks to have interviews on this report. You know, ultimately, we're a democracy and people vote, and people must be informed when they cast their vote. So for us, this report is worth nothing if the people is not aware of the report and doesn't come to the debate and have the debate and look at the data and start with rationality and pragmatism, looking into the future. So I can only ask the media to give the exposure to these things as you have done, and that's really great, and I thank you very much for that.
No, good.
Wonderful. Eben, thank you so much for sharing all your wonderful insight with us and also our InfoStreamers out there. Ek dink ons kan net dalk 'n bietjie moet ons nie nog 'n paar advertensies speel in
ons kan Kaufee, terwyl jy gou kyk of daar nog laaste boodskapies is, kom ek noem gou hierso
vir julle. Ons sê ook Eben for president. Hey, you're getting a lot of lady fans here, aren't you?
Kom ons kyk gou dan na Namibian Cleaning Masters. Daar's die telefoonnommers. Julle is natuurlik baie welkom om vir Wiek te skakel by daai telefoonnommer 0815654901. Dan het ons vir Eben Agri. Baie interessante konsep hierdie. Skakel gerus by 0814762282. Kaufee, jy ken meer inligting oor Eben Agri.
Eben Agri is a gentleman out of Otjiwarongo, Mark Mukke, who's basically brought to life this wonderful platform. It is not only an auction platform, it is also a platform where you can go and buy and sell your things.
Yeah, buy nice stuff.
Buy cool.
So guys, and then also just again a reminder, Andrie's boodskap by Presley's this Friday at 9:30.
Then looking at the weather, we are still dealing with the incredible phenomena of Cyclone Freddy, who just seems to be hanging around between Madagascar and Mozambique and not getting anything done. And soos ons gister gesê het, die weer experts sê dat hierdie 'n sikloon wat ons hierso nou het tussen Madagaskar en Mozambique suig al die vochtigheid uit Namibia uit. As ons na Suid-Afrika kyk, amper no cloud cover over South Africa, most of Botswana and also most of Namibia. But in the meantime, the weather for the rest of the day here in Namibia, the interior sunny and hot in the south, elsewhere partly cloudy and hot to very hot with a few isolated thunder showers over the northeastern half. Windy weather will persist in the interior. Het julle agtergekom hoe die wind ons weggewaai het oor die laaste 2-3 dae?
Nee, dis waar. Dis
baie kom reën. Daai sikloon gaan daar by Beira aangaan.
Okay, en
dan sit ons weer met 'n verspoeling en dan gaan almal weer kla oor te veel reën.
Ja. Ons kla ons as ons nie en dan kla ons as ons weer te veel reën.
Maar wat interessant, die ouens hoop, hulle sê the higher the energy level impact on Beira, the better for the countries, and that's Zambia, or Zimbabwe, Botswana, Angola, and
so let's wait for next week. In the meantime, the coast partly cloudy and mild to warm with a couple of fog patches. Kyk 'n bietjie na die maksimum temperature vir die dag. Windhoek 32, Walvis Bay 22, swak op 20. Katima Mulilo 34, then Ondangwa 36, Oshakati 36, Otjiwarongo 35. My gunsteling plek, Keetmans Hopeloos. Met 34 grade
terug.
Ja, en dan weer eens het ons niks oor die ooste van die land nie. Ons vergeet vir Gobabes en vir Buitepos.
Ja, belangrike plekke ons. Ja, wat is plekke wat oor die grens, dis naby grensposte, ons moet weet waar daar gaan.
Yes.
Daai temperature klink my na koue biertemperatuur.
Ek dink ook so. Ek wonder of ons hier by Nichols ietsie kan
Ja, en onthou môreoggend is Food Friday by Farm and Ocean Nicholstraat. Dit is Lisel en André het ek het gesê julle moet sorg dat julle hier is so ewen môreoggend. Dit begin met 'n koffie, so by 8:15, half 10.
Jy sê koffie is ek daar.
En dan ja, okay. En dan van
Waar ons
10:00 af is
gaan
dit
eindig is 'n heel ander storie.
ons Food Fridays is absoluut mal. Maar môre is weer 'n lekker Food Friday waar almal saam kuier. So jy's baie welkom môre. Farm and Ocean by Nikkelstraat, jy moet net sorg jy daar is. En ek dink Kaufeee, ons moet hom ook nooi, want kyk, hy het 'n paar kollegas.
Ja.
Hy praat hier van ouens wat gereeld beleggings doen.
Miskien
moet nou 'n braaibroodjie
kan ekonome braaibroodjies maak.
kan hy braai.
Ek moet myself nou bewys.
Daar's 'n paar kompetisies waar
Daar's
jy
nog
kan
nie
doen.
data, maar dit is nog nie nagevors nie, maar ek
So 2, 3, 4
Ja,
bring van jou slim buddies saam dan wys
Bring
hulle
jy
vir
60 bladsy navorsing oor die impak van braaibroodjie by enige sosiale sameslutting. Maar ons nooi jou plegtig uit om 'n span in te skryf van ons volgende kompetisie. Ja. Einde van die maand, eintlik vroeg volgende maand. Die span kan bestaan uit 2 lede en 'n klomp aanhangers.
Ek stuur sommer vir jou nou die
Hierso nee, werklik, dis werklik so. Sal lekker wees as ons jou hierso sien.
Ja,
Kom
dit is
bewys.
heel lekker.
Kom bewys
klink
jou
heel
stal.
lekker,
Kaufeee, ek is eers klaar, maar ek was hier vlug my stories uit, maar is daar nog eens wat nog laaste woordjies
Tot nou, nee, dit is dit. Ons het al die links ingesit. We're basically done. Thank you for joining us.
Dankie. Sien julle môre. Food Friday gaan 'n lekker oggend wees. Eben baie dankie. 1000 dankie.
vir julle dankie.
En ek beloof ek sal dit gaan klaar lees. Ek het by die eerste
beloof.
nee, ek dink na hierdie gesprek definitief. Dankie baie dankie. Alright, bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Remember, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, and you can also WhatsApp us. Please do us a favor and like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell icon, so you can get an update when new videos are uploaded. Thanks for now, hope to see you next time.